Alan, firstly, team news ahead of that trip down to Dumfries. What's the latest news in terms of injuries?
Not much different really compared to last week. JJ's not going to be available. So apart from that, we are probably in exactly the same situation as last week. So yeah, we're no new injuries to report. We've got the same are the ones coming back. David's doing really well in his rehab, so he's making really good progress. Fareed the same. Fareed's had just a steroid injection put into his ankle just to free up a little bit of pain that he was getting with it, which is nothing untoward or is a real concern. Sometimes you can get to a stage where you have one or two little irritations that maybe just need a little bit of help. And what Fareed done at this moment in time is that he's progressed really well. You know, better than what we expected, to be honest. And throughout your rehab, you can have real signs of an upward spiral for long periods, and then suddenly you plateau a little bit, and because that progression is not the same, as you sometimes can get a little bit disappointed, and I feel as if Fareed's at that. We're delighted with his progress. He's still ahead of schedule. But he probably had a week last week where he was a little bit disappointed and a little bit down on himself, and it was just a matter of having a chat with him, just reinforcing where he is. The specialists are really happy, which is it should be a real big slice of comfort for him. The fact that everybody's really happy with where he is, but obviously he's wanting to be back sooner rather than later. But the most important thing is that when he's back, he's ready to go and he's raring to go, and we limit the risk of him breaking down.
Just on the topic of injuries, Jordan Forster featured for the development squad against Hearts in midweek. Does he now come in contention for a starting spot, or do you feel perhaps it will be another kind of cameo appearance off the bench?
I think he will. I think he still needs more fitness in him. You know, he's had 10-15 minutes at the weekend. He had 45 minutes on Tuesday, and I still think he needs at least another 120 minutes into him, you know, before we even consider him in contention for the first team. So, you know, he has been out quite a while, and the one thing that he hasn't been able to gain would be real match sharpness, and he's still a little bit short of that. So the amount of minutes that we can get into him as soon as possible and as much as possible, then we'll look to do that.
Sam Stanton came off the bench against Cowdenbeath, and he played a big part in that great finish to the game. When you first came in, did you originally perceive him perhaps as a wide player, and now do you see him more as a central midfield player?
No, not necessarily. I think what happens is that we played him early on in a wide position, but we looked upon him after seeing him there as potentially a player that could play as a number 10 or off a forward, and yes, it has been probably frustrating for Sam, the fact that the team's done so well, but you have to make sure then that when you do get an opportunity, that you grab it with both hands and you give me a real problem, as in, you know, do I pick him the next game? And Sam's been great. You know, he's trained really well, and I know as a player that can be disappointing and frustrating at times when you're doing that and you're not getting in the team. But the thing I would say is that the team's done so well, you know. So and I've rewarded the team who have done so well, that I've been able to name an unchanged team for a number of weeks. But he did look very lively when he came on the weekend, and that's what he has to keep doing. I've spoken to Sam, and he knows exactly how I feel, what we expect of him, and what he needs to do, and he's very comfortable with that.
Scott Martin's obviously featured prominently for the under-20s. He's also been given his first team debut. How are you evaluating his progress? Is he a player that maybe will be sent out on loan to perhaps a lower division team during the second half of the season, or how do you see that one evolving?
Well, he's done really well, but I'm loath to speak about the really young players, because he's got plenty of time on his hands to develop, and at this moment in time we're really happy with the progression that he's making. We think he's got a real bright future ahead of him, and we'll just keep dipping him in and out, and pulling him every now and then from training sessions, and when we feel as if he needs to, because he is at his age, he's going to go through lots of ups and downs in his development, where one minute he'll look like he's doing really well, and then the next minute, for no reason, there doesn't have to be a reason, where he takes a little dip. And the fact that he's been training with the first team means that the intensity and the level of training that he's been training at is completely different to what he's been used to, and we'll have to look at that. But I've got to say, taking into account all of that, he's doing really well at this moment in time.